Hi, we have to talk. As always, with the E7 community, somehow kits and things that are supposed to be released early don't end up getting released early, or things get leaked, and whatever the case is, we know what Harsetti's kit is, which is not necessarily supposed to be intended for. And in my last video that I made about Fenris, I was assuming that we'd be coming back here tomorrow to get a look of Harsetti, but lo and behold, we have her kit. Now, if you're interested, the first kit, or the first part of her kit, her S1 says that it attacks 2 enemies, lowering CR by 10%, healing for damage dealt, and it scales to her own HP. So she's kind of a healing, or like a self-healing HP scaler, presumably. Now, that's not the important part. The S2 reads, for every 1 soul that your opponent has, you increase Harsetti's allies' attack and defense by 5% up to a max of 100%. When anyone soul burns, including herself, and, you know, anyone on her allies and enemies, strip 2 buffs from all enemies, then use Psych Domination, which reads that Psych Domination, all enemies are restricted in attack down for 1 turn. Now, that's already ridiculous, obviously, because restricting and attack downing cleave characters basically means they don't do anything. Characters like Commander Pavel and whatever character you can even think of doesn't do anything when they're attack down and they're restricted. And furthermore, for even some, you know, anti-cleave targets, if Candy isn't able to push up, if she has attack down, her effectiveness is much lower. Now, to be clear, something to reference about this S2, while it does read to be extremely powerful, it doesn't, or we aren't familiar with currently if this means that even while she's stunned, or when she's, you know, sealed or slept, if she will, you know, perform this attack. It just says when anyone soul burns, she strips 2 buffs from all enemies. I'm assuming this has to be attack, and she has to be awake for this to happen. So it is kind of interesting, or we'll have to see how this works. But this, for instance, based on what I'm reading, wouldn't necessarily stop someone like ML Luna or, you know, New Moon Luna from sealing her and then stopping her. Now, that's not that insane because, you know, ML Luna counters literally every character in the game in most cases, but it is worth noting that she doesn't, or may not, stop someone like New Moon Luna from performing her stuff. And otherwise, you know, you could just use Harsetti and New Moon Luna together. Oh, insane. Anyways, the craziest thing, though, I know I kind of misled you, is actually her S3, which reads that she purges all injury from herself, and then the use of primordial force to reave all enemies, which ignores damage share and mitigation, which scales off of HP. Now, again, I don't know if this is just injury for her. Like, I'm assuming, but like this is just injury removal from herself. But the weird-ish kind of wording and the fact this is a translation, to me, kind of reads like perhaps there's a chance it cleanses, you know, injury from other allies. I'm not exactly sure. I'm assuming that it's just from herself, but the primordial force to reave all enemies seems like a bit of a mistranslation, or like a mix-up a little bit. But it sounds like she does a big AoE on her S3 that, number 1, ignores damage share and mitigation, and it scales with HP while also purging injury from herself. Now, the reason why this makes sense with herself, of course, is if all of her stuff or all of her damage scales with HP specifically, purging herself from injury will make her do the most amount of damage possible, and is basically like cleansing yourself before you use a big damage skill if you're an attack character. Whatever the case is, this is fantastic for her kit, and she's obviously going to be very strong, especially in slower games where you have to fight against someone like maybe Death Dealer Ray, or you have to fight against injury characters like maybe ML Ilinov or ML Shu. But this is where we have to talk, because this sets a very scary precedent. This is kind of something that's always been on the cusp of happening, or this is something that's always been considered and talked about as something that could be introduced to the game, because at this point, we've basically introduced so many things into the game that we're at a breaking point where the only thing you could do is break what was already broken, which sounds very stupid and is not like the greatest analogy ever. But essentially, when every character in the game, or when some characters in the game now can remove you from hitting you, or from hitting back, they remove you from being able to cleanse yourself, they remove you from being able to use your passive, they unbuffable you, they don't allow you to move. What more could you even add to that? And well, now we're seeing something that's actually pretty insane, which is a self-purge of injury. if you guys aren't familiar with what injury is, it's the reduction of health after an attack or after a certain condition has been met. And for a lot of, characters like ML Shu, even for the injury set itself, the point of running it is so that super tanky team compositions don't just sit there for 9 years and just Dark Corvus Esther you after 15 or 18 minutes in RTA or in Guild War, whatever the case is. That's why a lot of teams right now will have ML Shu, or they'll have injury on certain characters to prevent you from running super high health targets. Now, this, as far as I could tell, if we're just reading it as it stands right now, is just a self-purge from herself for injury, but it is a very dangerous precedent to set, because what is stopping another character from purging injury from everyone? What is to stop a super big bruiser like, I don't know, Dark Corvus 2 from having a huge nuke on S3, but not having, but also having this purge injury from himself? A lot of characters in the game right now, including characters like Albedo or any character you can think of, would definitely be rewarded from having a purge all injury from self, since a lot of them scale off of HP, their damage scales, they want to be tankier, etc. And this is scary, because if they're going to go down this path of removing injury from the self, what's to say that maybe there's not something that's, even greater than a seal on the horizon? Seal, in my opinion, has been extremely powerful in the game, and I think a lot of players are understanding of how powerful characters like Knockwall and Emma Luna are because of it. But what if there's, something even crazier, like unable to be sealed buff, or sealable unable to be sealed debuff? You know what I mean? Like, it sounds like we're playing this weird game of cat and mouse, where it's like, oh, well, you can't counterattack me. Well, actually, I have a condition that says that even though I can't be countered, I can counterattack. Like, what? Like, what? This is a really weird kind of addition and change to the game. And again, just based off of what we've seen about Harsetti, we haven't seen any of her skills or animations. Well, I should say we haven't seen all of her animations, but we've seen obviously what her skills now do. And we had a little bit of a teaser preview of what she looked like on the E7 update content review thing. But ultimately, guys, I think she looks interesting. It looks like she's going to do a load of damage. I was figuring at some point that we're going to have to add another character that punished soul burn. And although we had Bellion, who's really good at it, she just full stop removes any souls from being in the game. Characters like Frida and the ability to seal characters like Bellion does also obviously add counterplay back to Bellion's whole generation stopping of souls. But now we have another character that adds another way to prevent people from wanting to soul burn, or I guess like preventing the enemy from soul burning. Who knows? But it looks really interesting, again, because this is also another character that affects both sides. In prior cases, it used to be something like someone like Briar would remove affect both sides in a negative way. But as far as I could tell from Harsetti right now, it looks like it's positive for both teams. For the team that has Harsetti and is negative towards the enemy. So kind of similar to I don't even know who I'd say it to. Ludwig, I think, is similar to that situation. In any case, guys, I think she looks fantastic. Almost broken. I don't think any of this is, we'll have to see how impactful this is, because again, if you're someone that is fighting against cleave, I mean, you'll definitely be running through like 40, maybe even 60 souls, which means that you have effectively a defense buff and an attack buff when they are using their third soul burn, which could be impactful and scary. And at the very minimum, you gain 20% defense if it's just one soul burn. And also it strips 2 buffs from all allies, so like could be really impactful or scary depending on what it is. Again, keep in mind that the Psych Domination also attack downs all enemies and restricts, which is super scary. So it sounds like, as far as I can tell right now, since most people are already pre-banning New Moon Luna or aren't letting her through, this will be really impactful for people that are trying to just raw cleave with someone like Ran. And that's scary. And maybe, I don't know, maybe cleavers will take Harsetti with them. I'm probably going to try and use her. I don't know. But anyways, that's going to be it for this video. Insane that her kit got shown already. Insane that her kit has some, really groundbreaking, implications for the future. But yeah, I'm sure slow players or like standard players will use her. Anyways, that's going to be it for this video. Thanks again for watching. Sorry again for rambling. It's like 6 a.m. I thought I was done after I made Fenris. Anyways, good night, good afternoon, goodbye. I'll see you guys next time. Adios.